Hello and welcome. My name is Frank Biskupek. I'm brand ambassador for the Aberlour single malt whisky from Scotland. The Aberlour whisky is produced in the Highlands of Scotland in a region called Speyside. Very famous and very popular are the Speyside whiskies. They're quite easy on the palate, very enjoyable, and depending on the style of whisky that we've produced, it can be a very luscious, delicious style of whisky, in which this Aberlour really is. What we're doing is marrying two casks together. Usually with the spirit, we will only have one spirit, but when we finish that whisky in the maturation period, we're going to leave it in bourbon, ex-bourbon casks and ex-Oloroso sherry casks. And there's a bringing together of the two casks before bottling the whisky. In this case, there'll be a small amount of Oloroso sherry cask included. I'd like to go through some tasting notes with you, but first maybe a little bit of the history of Aberlour. It's a tiny little village in the Highlands of Scotland. The gentleman that started the current distillery that we know today was James Fleming, who in 1879 actually took over the distillery. He had an idea of how he wanted his whisky to taste. Unfortunately today we still enjoy the same flavour of spirit. Fleming was very famous in the village, very famous in the Highlands of Scotland. He was very much a philanthropist, and all the profits that were made on the distillery were given back to the people of Aberlour through the building of a schoolhouse, the hospital, the town hall, and indeed the penny brig, a very famous brig that still stands today over the River Spey. The influence of Fleming's whisky, I'd like to maybe go through a tasting with you now. So maybe we can look at the colour of the whisky first. That should normally give you an idea of what is in that glass, and one can see that as well as the gold tones that we have in the whisky, there's a nice reddish brown in there. That's the hues that you would get from the sherry influence. On the nose, one always enjoys the fact that there's a citrus element to it, also honey sweet and vanilla. And in the case of this one, I get red apples, and it's quite delicious. The whisky, let's taste. And now we get some depth to it, almost a creaminess on the tongue. But also there's a little ginger effect, something spicy going on as well. Sits very well on the tongue. Very easy whisky to drink. And then the warmth that comes from it after the whisky's distributed is quite tasty. Keep in mind it's only for sipping. You can use a little piece of ice or some water, but I think with a whisky like this it deserves to be on its own. So that's the Aberlour. Thank you very much again. We look forward to working with Porter Airlines for the next 2 weeks, and as we say in Scotland, Slange of Ar, or cheers.